The engines were running. 16 modified B-25 bombers sat on the pitching deck of USS Hornet, nearly 400 miles further from Japan than planned. Admiral William Halsey's weather had closed in. The fleet had been spotted by a Japanese picket boat. There was no turning back, and no way to land on a carrier that the planes had never been designed to leave. Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle climbed into the lead aircraft and looked down the 300-foot deck ahead of him. The sea was heaving. The drop was 60 feet. If the plane nosed down on takeoff, every man aboard would be dead in seconds. He pushed the throttle to full. On the 18th of April, 1942, 4 months and 11 days had passed since the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor shattered the United States Pacific Fleet and killed over 2,400 Americans. In that time, Japan had seized the Philippines, Malaya, Hong Kong, Singapore, Burma, and Guam. Every day brought new defeats. American morale was collapsing. In Washington, President Franklin D. Roosevelt told his Joint Chiefs he wanted Japan bombed. He wanted it done soon. And he wanted the Japanese people to feel what war actually felt like. The man chosen to lead the mission was Lieutenant Colonel James H. Doolittle, a stunt pilot, aeronautical engineer, and one of the most decorated aviators in American history. His problem was simple and nearly impossible. No American bomber could reach Japan from a safe distance and return. The Navy proposed launching from a carrier, but carriers had never launched medium bombers. The B-25 Mitchell was the only plane that could carry enough bombs, take off in enough space, and survive the journey. Doolittle's men trained for weeks at Eglin Field, Florida, learning to lift off in less than 500 feet. They stripped their planes of extra weight, added fuel tanks, and removed the lower gun turret to save space. None of them were told where they were going. The task force sailed from San Francisco in early April under strict radio silence. 16 B-25 were lashed to the deck of the Hornet, flanked by the carrier Enterprise and a screen of cruisers and destroyers. The plan was to launch from 500 miles out, strike Tokyo and 4 other cities, then fly southwest and land in nationalist Chinese territory. On the morning of April 18th, at 7:38 a.m., a Japanese radio vessel spotted the fleet and broadcast a warning before being sunk. The launch point was still 200 miles short of the planned position. Doolittle made the call, go now or turn back. One by one, all 16 planes rolled down the Hornet's deck and lifted into a gray Pacific sky. Doolittle went first, pulling the nose up at the last second with feet to spare. Then Mitchell after Mitchell, none of them had ever launched from a carrier before, and none ever would again. They flew at wave-top level across the open ocean to avoid radar detection, climbed over the Japanese coastline at noon, and dropped their incendiary and high-explosive bombs on Tokyo, Yokohama, Nagoya, Osaka, and Kobe. The attack lasted minutes. Anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. Japanese fighters scrambled too late. The bombs caused limited physical damage, but the psychological impact was devastating. The Japanese home islands, which military leaders had declared impregnable, had been struck by American aircraft. Emperor Hirohito had nearly been within range of the bombs. The Japanese military was humiliated. In response, Imperial headquarters ordered the permanent withdrawal of 4 fighter groups from the Pacific Front to defend the home islands, a decision that weakened Japan's outer defenses at a critical moment. They also launched a punitive campaign against the Chinese provinces that had aided the raiders, killing an estimated 250,000 civilians. For the raiders themselves, the mission did not end well. With fuel nearly exhausted after flying over Japan and fighting headwinds, all 16 planes either crashed or were abandoned over China and the Soviet Union. 3 men died in crashes. 8 were captured by the Japanese. 3 of those 8 were executed as war criminals. 1 died in captivity. The remaining 71 eventually reached Allied-held territory, many with the help of Chinese villagers and guerrillas who risked, and in many cases lost, their lives sheltering them. The raid's true legacy was never about the bombs. It was about what came after. Within weeks, Japan's military strategists concluded that the only way to prevent future strikes on the home islands was to extend Japan's defensive perimeter further into the Pacific, specifically to capture Midway Island and destroy what remained of the American carrier fleet. That decision set the stage for the Battle of Midway in June 1942, where the United States Navy, armed with broken Japanese codes, ambushed and sank 4 of Japan's 6 elite fleet carriers. The Doolittle raid did not win the Pacific War, but it forced the decision that led to the battle that did. James Doolittle received the Medal of Honor from President Roosevelt personally, was promoted 2 full grades to Brigadier General, and went on to command the 12th Air Force in North Africa, the 15th in the Mediterranean, and the 8th Air Force in Europe. He never considered the Doolittle raid his greatest contribution to the war. He called it a one-way trip that cost more than it gained. History disagrees. 80 men flew into an impossible situation and told an American public that had known only defeat that their country was still in the fight.